truth for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I've got Bob Savage here in studio.
Yes, you do. Happy Epiphany, all.
Yep. Happy Epiphany and all, which I didn't know until maybe, 10 minutes ago. That's the 12th day of Christmas.
12th day of Christmas, yep. Falls on January 6th, marks the official end to the festive season for Christians. The 12th night Epiphany also marking a visit to the baby Jesus by the three kings, Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar.
There you go. And that's also, I just looked it up real quick. Today's the day you're supposed to get rid of your Christmas tree. Is that how it works too? That's
I think you should get rid of your Christmas tree anytime it's in danger of bursting into flames. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, for us that was like a week before Christmas. Our tree was oh man,
These elderly trees.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think the tree must have been dead when we cut it, and we just didn't know yet, And because by day 3, and we always do a live tree. We always treat them the same. We water them.
Except in this case, a not so live tree.
Yeah. This time, oh man, you could sneeze next to it, and it would be like a windstorm of needles flying across the house. It was no good. So.
Did you cut that one? Did you tell me you cut that one down too?
Yeah. We almost always go out and cut them down ourselves. Yeah. So.
Did you go out into the special Agent Orange field? Select that tree.
Yeah. No, it was a farm out in Webster, which is where we normally go, and the tree looked great when we got it, and didn't quite make it. So it was actually pretty interesting. We're like, so how are we going to take the ornaments off the tree without getting needled to death? But we made it just fine. So
I'm telling you, man, those aluminum trees with the rotating color wheel, that's the way to go.
Yeah. They look pretty cool. They definitely look interesting. They're probably more environmentally friendly. But I don't know if
keep using the same one year after year or so.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it can be, when it gets really beat up and icky looking, then it can be recycled into beer cans. Which is that's a happy ending for a Christmas tree.
Yeah, or you could do like Genesee Brew House and just do a Christmas tree of kegs, right?
Now we're getting somewhere.
Tree. There you go. Yeah. So, as I look outside, I saw a post. I shared this too over the weekend. New York State is just getting so bad, even winter left. I mean, at this point, we don't have winter anymore.
Winter couldn't afford to live here.
Yeah. Everybody thinks it's the weather. The weather just up and walked away because it's just too expensive.
Well, we're talking about that being too expensive. Governor Headcase, I'm Cuomo, I'm sorry, is launching a $300 million project to reimagine the Erie Canal. Isn't that special?
So that's interesting because the Erie Canal already costs us like $150 million a year, and we do nothing.
What do we do with
nothing?
It's a body of water that's usable 6 months of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's interesting. Did he say what the plan was?
Well, we have all these video monitors here at the station, and we're affiliated with a local NBC TV station. So the new news is on, and I saw there were some renderings.
Oh,
Government loves renderings and video. Animations of projects that they want to spend your money on.
Yeah.
So you all look at it and go, "Jeepers! Look, that's so cool!"
Yeah.
Look, it's an Erie Canal there's a bridge over it with people going over there.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. Larry Sharp and I actually talked about what New York could do with the Erie Canal, and that plan was very different. It actually involved private companies investing the money themselves and taking that $150 million that the taxpayers currently pay and letting private companies cover that for us. Just a stark difference between the Cuomo administration and what I believe to be good governance. He's like, okay, so it costs $150 million a year. Let's tack another $300 million on for development. That just makes government bigger. That puts us in deeper debt. We should be looking at alternatives to taxation, like allowing businesses to build around the locks along the canal, and then renting out, naming rights to the locks or something like that, allowing them to become a tourist attraction, allowing RIT, engineering students to build a hovercraft and run hovercraft rides on there, or, whatever, some cool thing. And, I think it's called Schoen's Place over in Pittsburgh.
Schoen Place, yep.
Where there's like shops and stuff, and that little stretch of the canal.
Oh, that's not alone. There's all kinds of canal-side communities who actually have a bustling little kind of mini retail destination right in the downtown. Spencerport is that way. Yep. They have the Lift Bridge, which is very nostalgic. Fairport, same way.
Yep.
You got Packett's Landing there. And there's a lot of communities that have that.
Yeah. So that's what New York should be looking at. They should be looking at, how do we take this concept and turn it into a way to replace tax revenue with revenue provided by businesses in terms of advertising or something similar, and to eliminate those costs altogether. But that's not the goal of this administration. So that's just my opinion on it.
Well, just let's all recall that the government, the metric now for the success of any given project is how much money was spent on it. That's right.
Yep. No, totally true. So I'm gonna announce the topic of today's show. Last week, I think we did a show kind of focused around the Second Amendment, and we've done a number of shows like that, but we haven't done any shows around the Third Amendment. I feel like it gets left out. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to talk about the Third Amendment today.
Hey, listen, I'm telling you, quartering of soldiers, it's a problem. But it's interesting that is another one of the Bill of Rights that's being trammeled by big government, because there are multiple instances. I don't want to derail you here, multiple instances of there's going to be some big drug bust or drug sting in a neighborhood, and they just come and knock on somebody's door and march in there with a bunch of cops and computers and surveillance equipment and just set up shop in there.
Yep.
And they, in some instances, they've even gone through the refrigerator.
Really?
And eating no court order, no documentation shown or whatever. It's almost like a terroristic home invasion.
Yeah.
So don't laugh about the Third Amendment.
Yeah, that's interesting. That could be a show someday. We're gonna have to do that. So today's show is not the Third Amendment, but the First Amendment, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the First Amendment because I get the feeling there's a lot of people who've never actually read it, And one of the things that we talk about with the Second Amendment is how the Second Amendment doesn't grant you permission for things. The Second Amendment is a restriction on what government can do. Well, the First Amendment is the same thing. And there's an interesting thing that's come up over the last couple of weeks, which is Edward Snowden is having his finances seized and profits seized from the book he wrote. And the question is he protected by the First Amendment in this? And should this be happening? So what we're going to do, we're just going to talk about the First Amendment, do a little bit of education on that. We'll read it on air for you guys. And then we'll just have a conversation, because I want to get your guys' feedback. And I'll give you the background on all the Snowden stuff too. But the question is, is his actions, is his book that he published covered by the First Amendment, and the government seizing his money is a violation of the First Amendment? We're going to talk about that today when we come back from the break on Radio Free New York.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hi, Bob Savage here for the WYSL station. So times are tight, and you've got to watch every penny. How to get maximum advertising impact without shelling out maximum bucks? Well, there's print media. Of course, there's a reason why it's called the incredible shrinking daily paper. Then there are those penny savers and shoppers, 98% of which hit the recycling bin without ever being opened. And are you really looking for customers who are shopping for used tires and playpens? You could try cable TV, 500 channels, 12 viewers per channel. Or how about hiring some guy in a day-glow orange wig to dance holding up your sign down at the corner? If you want real advertising impact with a quality message for savvy consumers who actually have money to spend, WYSL has a giant 20,000-watt signal and 2 FM channels at 92.1 and 95.5, covering 1.4 million people all over Rochester and the region, literally all the way to Pennsylvania. Get results, save time and money. Call us, get on board, and start growing for 2020. 346-3000 or WYSL1040.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years
Last spot.
and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Right. Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I see some of you guys are commenting in the live stream. So just a reminder, if you want to talk, add to the discussion, feel free to pop over on Facebook or YouTube, search Andrew C. Hollister, and drop a comment or a question in the live stream. I see John saying good morning, and June has what looks like a petition to remove Cuomo from office, which is awesome. I don't know. We don't have a recall set up in New York, though, do we? We don't have a way to do a recall on an election?
Good question. I don't know.
I don't know if we
My
do.
bet, knowing the politics in the state, I think there's no way that those clowns in Albany would provide an avenue for us to dispose of them.
Yeah. However, you might be able to petition for something to come on the floor or something like that, or just have a petition for, making a statement. You get enough people to sign a petition, it's definitely a good thing. I also want to wish somebody a happy birthday. Today is my dad's birthday. So happy birthday, Dad. If you're listening to the show, we're going to go do some shooting, actually, after the show.
Cool.
So celebrate the right way. So for those of you joining the show, this is Radio Free New York. I'm Andrew Hollister. We are talking about the First Amendment. And I see Bob's got his pocket constitution out and ready to go. So why don't we just start by reading the First Amendment?
Why not indeed? All right. Me. All right. Amendments to the Constitution of the United States of America. Amendment 1. 1. Ratified December 15, 1791. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Period. Full stop.
Yep, there it is. So,
was there anything in there? Did anybody, now a quickie quiz here, folks. Anybody there hear anything about separation of church and state? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, I feel like a lot of people have never truly read and digested the text.
I'm glad you brought this up, Andrew Hollister, because I want to reiterate our station policy. Anybody who wants a copy of the Constitution of the United States, the nifty little pocket version, which also includes the Declaration of Independence and other goodies associated in here, send us a stamped self-addressed envelope to Constitution, WYSL, Box 236, Avon 14414, and we will send you one for free. Go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I tell you what, I have them like all over. I've got one in my car. I've got, one usually in my my range bag, and it's always a great thing because a lot of people, I feel, don't just misunderstand the Constitution, but they haven't really taken the time to read it. And it's interesting because every time I read it, I feel like I find something new. And you would think that that's not the case. But you open up, you go, wow, I don't remember. This is really important. Every time it's something really important. And I love going through like the Federalist Papers as well and kind of like picking stuff up there.
Those are really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of them, but...
Yeah. I've got like a book. It's like, an inch and a half or 2 inches thick. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. But really, you get the sense when you read this stuff of what the founding fathers truly intended when they founded this country. And I think the intent is so important, especially when we talk about things like firearms and we talk about the Second Amendment, and people will often come up with this really awful rebuttal where they say, well, the founding fathers, they had muskets. They had no thought or no idea as to the weapons of war today. And they totally missed the context. The musket was the quote unquote media created assault weapon of that day. It was the high end military grade weapon of that day. That's why the text was so general, because they knew technology would advance. They intended for people to have the same weapons that their government did. So,
well, anybody who's done 5 minutes of and this is why we encourage getting a copy of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, because it's just illuminating. If the language is beautiful in its simplicity, and it becomes, if you're an open-minded and fair person and not looking to fulfill some kind of agenda, and you read the words that our founding fathers set forth, the meanings will pop out of the page at you. They'll become self-evident. And furthermore, if you spend any time at all with the Federalist Papers, you'll know that what the number one concern of all these guys were, George Mason and Adams and Jefferson and Hamilton and all of them, was the role of government. They wanted to make sure that government knew its place and what the function of government was for, and it was definitely subordinate to the individuals.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. If you know history, they wrote this document after overthrowing their government.
Right?
They didn't write this document after making, after finishing a Facebook fight in the comments.
And nor did they appoint a 400-member committee to define what our rights should be as granted by government. No, what they did exactly the opposite. And as you very succinctly pointed out, Andrew, right after overthrowing a repressive government.
Yeah. So that's kind of the first piece, right? Just hearing the First Amendment, understanding it. There's a couple pieces that I often point out to people when reading the First Amendment, and it mentions freedom of speech. It doesn't mention freedom of speech you like. It also doesn't mention freedom of speech you dislike. They made it general for a purpose. They made it, once again, this is a restriction on government. So government cannot come in and essentially restrict the press, restrict your right to peaceably assemble. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this stuff is happening anyways. You know, when you see places that have your freedom of speech zone, or, you know, you need to get a permit to have a discussion in a public area, those sort of things to me are in direct conflict with the First Amendment. Now, some of you are probably thinking, though, well, freedom of speech doesn't, that just lets me say whatever I want then, right? No, that doesn't, because the government being restricted from restricting your speech, that's one thing. But, somebody can kick you out of their house for saying something they don't like. It's their private property.
You can get fired.
Yeah,
for saying something. Yeah. Colin Kaepernick, if you happen to be listening today.
Yeah, no, it's true. And this is another conversation we had in an episode. I think it was titled something about Walmart wanting to ban guns in their stores or something like that. And we talked about Walmart and Wegmans and a few other big retailers, if you will, that were saying, please don't bring your guns on our property anymore. And some people were pretty upset, and understandably, and said, well, hey, don't I have the Second Amendment right to carry wherever I want? And, we discussed Second Amendment's about restricting government. Somebody could say, hey, don't bring this on my private property. And it's then your choice to say, well, then I'm not going to go on your private property.
Right. Well-regulated militia, that means trained, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the three short little lines that comprise the Second Amendment. Now, that means the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed by Congress.
Yep.
And by government. So shall not be infringed. Okay, but that's what government is saying about your right to have firearms.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with private property.
Yep. Yeah. So your family member says, hey, I don't want guns in my house. That's not technically a Second Amendment item, because Second Amendment applies to government, and your family member, you probably want to maintain a good relationship with. So, does that make us feel comfortable? No, it doesn't. I mean,
no, I wouldn't want to be in some kind of a store or a church or any other establishment which is openly declared a gun-free zone, because you might as well hang a sign out that says, come shoot us.
Yep. Come rob us, whatever. And that's the thing. I feel the American people have truly forgotten how to boycott places and how to vote with their money when these sort of things happen. Because there used to be a time when something like this would happen, and it doesn't have to be Second Amendment related, First Amendment related. It could be a practice, anything, where people would stand up and say, I will no longer support this establishment, and I will make sure that the press knows this, and I will make sure that my friends know this, and I will make sure that my family knows this, and I will hold fast on not making a purchase from this organization, and I will stand in front of their place of business on the private property between the sidewalk and the little piece of grass there where I can, and let people know. We've really lost that as a society, I think. So the First Amendment, sometimes people, and I see this on Facebook a lot, people say, well, I'm being censored on Facebook. I have my First Amendment rights. I have my freedom of speech. They can't do that. And this is one of those examples where that's not the case. Facebook is a privately owned platform, owned by a company that they can say what speech they want and don't want on their platform. Just like Twitter, just like YouTube, any of those things, online forums. And I think people misunderstand how the First Amendment works. They get very upset about it, very emotional. And they should be upset if they're trying to say something and it's being restricted. But I think they just think the recourse is different. The recourse isn't going to be court action. It's not going to be, a lawsuit over your constitutional liberties. It's going to be taking your business elsewhere. And some of you might think, well, Facebook doesn't charge me for using their platform. Oh, they do. They do. They charge you with all of your information and your data that you put there that they sell to advertisers, and then they advertise to you. So the way to boycott those organizations, if you feel like they're, pushing out speech or not allowing you to have the speech you want, is to stop using that platform. Use somebody else's. All right, guys, thank you for joining us on Radio Free New York. We're going to talk more about the First Amendment, more about freedom of speech in a moment when we come back from the break.
Let your local affiliate know here on Radio Free New York you enjoy the station carrying the program. That'll be our friends in Elmira, the Twin Tiers, and in Newark at WACK. We'll be back.
Twice the power.
WYSL.
More powerful FM 92.1, FM 95.5 west and 1040 AM WYSL Avon Rochester.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. Partly cloudy skies out there. We'll drop back into the upper 20s. Pretty quiet weather overall. Heading into Tuesday, a nice day back up in the 30s to near 40 with a mostly cloudy sky. A few snow showers Wednesday, minor accumulation. Blustery a bit colder with a high near 30. Some fair weather on Thursday, mild with some rain near 50 on Friday. I'm Rich Cornelia on WYSL.
Compass Care believes all people are created in the image of God and are equally valuable. A woman considers abortion because she feels trapped, like abortion is her only choice. She says, I need to have an abortion. Compass Care's mission is to erase the need for abortion in her mind by dignifying her with the ethical medical care and community support she deserves. Empowering her in this way gives her the ability to say no to abortion. New York is the abortion capital of the United States, forcing pro-life employers and medical professionals to carry the toxic water of their inhumane beliefs. Compass Care stands with women through service and now against the unjust coercive power of government through a lawsuit. Please consider expressing your pro-life convictions with a donation to launch Compass Care into a strong 2020. This Real Abortion News Update is sponsored by Compass Care. For a full transcript, go to realabortionnews.com.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Roberts Redhawks are home this week for the following events. It's back to East Coast Conference Hoops as the Redhawks take on Bridgeport Saturday. Doubleheader action begins at 6 p.m. On Sunday, January 12th, the Redhawks face off against Queens College in doubleheader action starting at 2 p.m. All the action can be heard right here on WYSL and seen across the ECC network online. To get all your Redhawks information, visit robertsredhawks.com. Roberts Wesleyan, Rochester's only NCAA Division II athletic scholarship program.
This is Dom Genova, owner of Genesee Valley Motors in Avon, your no-nonsense car dealer. Well, we're your no-nonsense truck dealer, too, selling Rams and Fords up to the mightiest that they make. And we have a shop with Master Techs open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 6 days a week, even Saturday, so you can get your truck serviced when it's not billing hours for you. You may not be used to that. Visit RochesterWorkTrucks.com. That's RochesterWorkTrucks.com.
Rochester families are singing the praises of Agape Black Belt Center and the positive impact it's having on their children, teens, and adults. Many parents today are finding help for their kids with discipline, respect, and manners. For over 35 years, Master Raw has made Agape the landmark martial arts center in Rochester for families. See Mrs. Joanna Raw at 3750 Monroe Avenue, Suite 1000, Pittsford, or at agapebbc.com. Agape Black Belt Center, where leaders are made.
It's back. The original Rochester Gun Show, Saturday, January 11th and Sunday, January 12th at the Rock Dome Arena in Henrietta. The Rochester Gun Show's a quality show. No junk. Bring us your antique, sporting, and collectible guns. All federal and state laws apply. We'll have 300 tables with dealers ready to buy and sell, and admission is just $8. The original Rochester Gun Show's back at the Dome. Saturday, January 11th from 9 to 4. Sunday, January 12th from 9 to 3 at the Rock Dome Arena, 2695 East Henrietta Road in Henrietta. Presented by the Empire State Arms Collectors Association.
I was in action. I was so hopeless, and I made the call to the Open Door Mission. I began to listen and learn and be rebuilt. And for the first time in my life, I believed I could do anything, that being clean and remaining clean was possible. I'm a different person, and I have Jesus Christ and the people here at the mission to thank for that.
Radio Free New York.
All right, we're back here on Radio Free New York. We're talking about the First Amendment, number 1. And I see there's a lot of comments coming in here in the live stream. So I want to welcome you guys to the show. We've got Dan, we've got Daniel, Nate. And Nate says, thank you. So many people don't understand that freedom of speech only applies to restricting government's ability to crack down on your speech. And that I think is really important, because I see people all the time, and I'm harping on Facebook here a little bit, because Facebook is just... there's so many people using it. And if you're maybe new to Facebook or just don't quite understand how it works, and you join a Facebook group and the group says, we have rules. This is a gardening group. Only discuss gardening. Otherwise, we're going to delete your post. And then you start posting about, your morning workout routine, or, how much you enjoy kettlebells, or your local elected official that you don't like. And the admins delete your post, and then you get really angry and go, but my freedom of speech, that's not quite how it works. Freedom of speech in the First Amendment specifically restricts government action against you. If you enter a private forum or a private platform like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and you join a group or a forum or a page or whatever, then they can delete your stuff. They can censor your stuff. You don't technically have constitutional privileges there, which I think some people don't want to hear, but that's the reality of the situation.
By the way, I've also heard this argument come out incredibly, and I just want to lay this to rest. Somebody actually pointed out on a talk show that, well, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting. That doesn't apply to the states. I hate to break the news to you, but all of the states, as a condition, I believe, to their being admitted to the Union, adopts the U.S. Constitution as part of their state constitutions. Yeah. So, yes, the Bill of Rights is part of your state constitution. Mm-hmm. So state law does include the Bill of Rights. Yes.
Yeah, and that's important for people to understand. I don't know who would want to make that argument. I can see why they would make that argument, but don't argue to have the state control your speech.
This is a seventh grade question, China. 7th, 8th grade. I'm thinking a sad commentary on the state of education today.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, if you've ever seen the Common Core education curriculum, it doesn't even give you the actual wording of the Constitution.
No.
They summarize it into a sentence or two per amendment. And in my opinion, it vastly changes the meaning.
Of course, because the meaning, first of all, how could you distill the language in the Bill of Rights any further. It's as
Pretty
brief
simple.
and concise as could be imagined. And why anybody would want to rephrase that, well, I'll leave it up to you to decide what the motivation would probably be, but I'm thinking probably because they wanted to spin it in some way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So freedom of speech. We talked about even the speech you don't like, right? It's not the government's job or role to step in and choose whose speech is right, whose speech is correct, and whose speech is wrong. That's just not government's role. Now, here's the thing. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence. And that is something that I think younger generations have struggled with a little bit, and it could be because of how broken the education system is. They go, well, I've got the freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want. They have no understanding that means government restriction, and then they get really upset when they get smacked by their parents, but freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. Somebody might beat you up for something you say, and you might get fired for it.
Or you might get thrown out of a bar.
Yeah.
Or you might be asked to leave some other place of public accommodation. Or you might flunk a course in college, or you might be disciplined or dismissed at work, because all this stuff has nothing to do with government.
Yeah, absolutely. So those I think are really important things for people to hear and know about, that freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. And I never once heard that in school. When in any of my history classes and participation of government, I knew it based on how I was raised. But I see a lot of people who maybe struggle with this, and those of you listening to the show, you probably aren't struggling with this, but maybe the show gives you an opportunity or a way to discuss this with other people, where you can pull out that pocket constitution and you can say, here's the text of the Constitution. And there's a lot more to it than just freedom of speech. One of the biggest things for me is your right to peacefully assemble. Your right to bring grievances to your government without repercussions, which is something that I think we as Americans don't really know how to do anymore. I see a few people doing this. I know Rand Paul, he does a redress of grievances once a year. And the stuff he's got in there is just like, it's atrocious to see what our government does, and the stuff that he's able to see that the government's doing from his position. And I think he's a representative in Congress, I think. I can't recall if he's...
who's again?
Rand Paul.
Yeah. Is he still currently in office?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he is.
Yeah. But the stuff that he puts out there really shows you how government has gotten so out of control. Just weird studies to the tune of $500,000 here, $12 million there. Somebody's buddy getting a contract for millions here or there. And sometimes you read what he puts out there and you go, wow, like I didn't even realize we have these problems. How many more problems do we have? So I know it kind of got off on a tangent there. But the next thing that I really want to talk about, I want to talk about Edward Snowden, because that's how we're going to finish out the last segment of the show. And I don't actually have an answer on this too. One of the things is the question is whether or not Edward Snowden's recent book, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about it, him writing that book, whether or not that should be covered under the First Amendment. So those of you who don't know who Edward Snowden is, he was the whistleblower on the government spying program on U.S. citizens. He worked for the CIA. He also worked for the NSA, handling classified information, working on programs where the United States government essentially was treating all citizens of the United States the same way they treat terrorists, tracking every phone call you make, every text message you've ever sent, every email you've ever sent, every picture message you've ever sent, aggregating it, creating trends of your life in the most intrusive way possible, having data on you that you would really not want anybody to know about or see, your most private parts of your life. The government was collecting, analyzing, trying to determine if you're a threat to your own country, and quite honestly, treating you as if you're already a threat to your own country. Snowden was a guy who said, I can't do this anymore. This is wrong, and the American people should know. There's a lot of controversy over that. Some people call him a traitor. Hillary Clinton called him a traitor, said he committed treason. Other people think he's an absolute hero, and people are super divided on Edward Snowden and what he did. So fast forward it, he ran away. He escaped the country. A lot of people thought that was a bad thing too. He went to places like, I think he was in France for a little while. I think is currently in Russia. And people are like, oh, he's in Russia. He's clearly a traitor now. He went wherever somebody would protect him from the U.S. government, essentially.
Political asylum.
Yeah. And he wrote a book about the decisions he made, how he arrived to those decisions. I haven't personally read the book. And to be honest, now that I know that money is going to the U.S. government, I have some theories as to what I think he should do. We'll talk about that later. But I don't know if there's any classified information in the book or not. That's what I'm getting around to. And that's what the government essentially used is a contract he signed during his employment at the CIA and the NSA, saying that any publications or public speeches he does, they would be allowed to review first. So when we come back to the show, we're going to talk about, is he protected under the First Amendment? Is he not? We'll talk about that. I want to get your comments and your feedback when we come back on Radio Free New York.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
Human trafficking is when someone is being forced, tricked, or coerced to engage in a sex trade or forced labor. If you're a kid and forced to sell sex, drugs, or work against your will, that's trafficking. You're not a criminal, and there is help available. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888 or text Be Free. Sponsored by the Livingston County Safe Harbors Human Trafficking Task Force.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Coming your way.
Radio Free New York.
All right, we are back here on Radio Free New York. We're talking about Edward Snowden. We're talking about the First Amendment. Just to bring you guys up to speed, Edward Snowden wrote a book, and the government says all the money from the book is ours, and including his paid public speeches.
Was there a lawsuit about that determined that?
There was, yeah. So here's what happened. Department of Justice sued him and his publishers for all the money for his publication and all public appearances he's made, which to me is interesting. You're essentially wanted for treason of the United States, and you're somehow making paid public appearances. Like, you know, only a guy who worked for the CIA and the NSA must know how to do this, because I figured they'd catch you in black bag yet wherever you are.
Is he back in the country, or is he still on the lam?
No, I think he's in Russia right now, but
he can make public appearances there, right?
There, but it seems like he's doing it other places too. So I don't know how he's traveling. He's clearly learned a few things. But here's kind of like the brief description from Reason.com. A federal judge in Virginia has ruled that the U.S. government has the authority to seize the proceeds of Edward Snowden's book because he failed to submit his book to the CIA and the National Security Agency for pre-publication review to analyze any classified information printed within. So the thing that is interesting is there was supposed to be a planned hearing for this with verbal arguments and everything.
You mean like an appeal, you mean?
Like as a part of this case.
Oh,
so
there wasn't how did
they
the
canceled
judge?
it. So the judge canceled the planned hearing for this case, and the verbal arguments, he said they weren't necessary, and quote, I mean, this is crazy to me anyways. Like, and the quote that the judge said is, the government is entitled to any money former National Security Agency leaker Edward Snowden makes from his memoir and paid speeches because he disclosed classified information without approval.
Based on what? So if there was no hearing, how does the judge know this? Is he clairvoyant?
So the interesting thing is here, I mean, Snowden hasn't been on trial. You know, now
yes, that's right.
He's publicly said that he did it, but I mean, that's not court released documents.
Well, I understand, but I mean, these are rhetorical questions. You understand?
Yeah.
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
We can't have a judicial decree based on nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be a proceeding by which we test the evidence that forms the basis of this ridiculous decision.
Yeah.
Unless there's something we don't know about this.
Yeah, and that's what's, to me, this is kind of crazy, because like there was no trial. You're saying these things happened, and you could point to videos online and say they happened, but innocent until proven guilty.
Yes, and in the civil context, if you're talking about civil forfeiture, which is basically what this is, you're just grabbing this guy's money.
Yep.
There has to be, this is the origin of the word trial, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we try the arguments that are being made to find out if they're a bunch of hokum or not.
Yeah.
We try different things, and these things are put to the test.
Mm-hmm. So Sean on YouTube, actually, Sean Phelan, who's normally here on the show, he says Snowden is a hero. His earnings can be legally taken if, and he puts if in capital letters here, he has been convicted of a crime. That way, you essentially saying, hence, no one can profit from their crimes.
Understood. We understand that, but there's a kind of like an intermediate step here that, from what I've heard so far, is kind of missing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think Sean agrees with that too. And he says, funny how the government wants to hold Snowden to his contract while the government breaks their contract with the American people. And yeah, no, I agree.
The government doesn't have a contract with the American people. The government is a creation of the American people, and it's supposed to serve our needs, not act as some kind of super authority. But we all understand that.
Yeah. The government officials are at least, swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, which seems to me on a fairly daily basis they are not upholding that oath.
No, because that's an icky Constitution thing. That the kids are being taught today. Mom and Dad, get this, okay? Your kids are being taught that the Constitution is obsolete and it's just an antique that was enacted by white slave owners. Nothing could be farther than this, but that's what they're being taught.
Sure. Yeah.
You need to disabuse them of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, can the U.S. government come in, seize these assets, and is that unconstitutional? Does his freedom of speech count here, or is the fact that the book is out there and published already the freedom of speech, and the finances are something separate? It's kind of it's an interesting situation here. And what the government, references in this whole thing is that he signed a contract saying he wouldn't. So the question becomes, is that contract, he signed it not under duress,
Was the contract violated?
Yeah, so I believe the contract is just that he can't publish anything without them reviewing it first, and they're saying he's in breach because he published it and they didn't get to review it.
Well, the contract says what it says,
So, yeah.
and it may be now. There's contracts out there that people sign every day that are unenforceable.
Exactly.
Because they violate law, or for some other reason, for vagueness, or for there's other jurisprudential rules that govern the interpretation and the enforcement of contracts. And see, that's where this inconvenient thing called a trial comes in. It takes a lot of time.
Sure.
Costs a lot of money. But see, that's the difference between the life that we lead in a democratic republic and living in a monarchy subject to, despotic kings.
Sure. Yeah.
Kind of important.
Yeah. So the thing I was thinking about as I was thinking to myself driving over to the studio about talking about this topic is if the contract violates the Constitution, if it violates your First Amendment rights, which I don't know if it does or if it doesn't. I haven't seen the entirety of it. But does that then mean that punishment for leaking classified information is non-enforceable under the Constitution? Because government can't make law to abridge your freedom of speech. So it becomes this weird kind of question of, is it enforceable by law, or is it essentially based on your honor as a person?
Well, a contract's a contract. It's a separate thing. It has nothing to do with federal law. It has nothing to do with the Bill of Rights. You can contract, anything that doesn't violate public policy, I suppose. For example, I mean, think of a non-disclosure agreement.
Sure.
Now, I mean, if you wanted to look at this through a certain lens, you would say that violates the First Amendment, but it doesn't. Because that's a private arrangement that you have made with another individual or entity in the case of a company.
Yeah.
So it's a non-disclosure agreement, but that's an agreement by which privately you agree not to say or do certain things, and that's enforceable.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about how Second or First Amendment only applies to government. So I think that's where the question there is.
First Amendment also.
First, second, and basically all of them, really, when you think about it. So you sit there and you go, so what power does the government have to? I think this is why the book hasn't been pulled off the shelves, because I don't think they can. I think the only thing they can do is civil action, which is interesting. They didn't really have any type of actual trial or anything for the civil action here, but I think this is the only way they're able to do it, because otherwise they'd be in violation of the First Amendment.
If there's an order out there, apparently some judge has issued an order grabbing this money, the proceeds from this book. First of all, the judge doesn't have jurisdiction over book proceeds in other countries.
Yeah,
unless Snowden is living here for some reason. Last I heard, he was living in Russia. So what Snowden needs to do is hire an attorney and go into court and have this order set aside, pending the outcome of a trial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would be an interesting thing, saying pending the outcome of a trial, you won't get me to have trial. But is that even possible? Can you have trial without a person present? They have to be present in court, right?
No, you have to be there to prosecute your case.
Yeah, so it's an interesting situation. So I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think. I think it's kind of a weird situation. Send me a comment. Send me an email.
I think we need more information.
Yeah, I think so too. But thank you for joining me on Radio Free New York. We'll be back tomorrow where we're going to talk about bail reform in New York State. It's going to be a fun topic. Catch you tomorrow.